So the reason that you can't think of any content ideas is because you fill up your mind with a lot of slop that shouldn't be there in the first place, and you don't give it enough space to think for itself. Now, I experienced this on my own because a few days ago I was laying in bed. I woke up before my alarm, ready to go to work, but of course, because it was before my alarm, I was just laying in bed, kind of half awake, and I was thinking of all these things that I wanted to talk about in my content, like idea one, idea two, idea three, idea four. And I was like, damn, I'm getting so many ideas right now. This is amazing because usually I don't get a lot of content ideas. So I was thinking, like, okay, this is great. I will try to remember all of these so that I can make a reel about it, make a YouTube video about it, script it out, whatever it may be, right? And so then my alarm goes off. I get up, I get in the shower, I brush my teeth, I get ready, I put on my clothes, get in the car. I put on a podcast, specifically a Chris Williamson podcast with Naval Ravikant. A very good podcast. But what I notice is, right, I'm driving to my work and I'm trying to think of all these ideas that I thought of in the morning when I was just laying in bed. And I couldn't think of any idea that I had for the life of me. And then I realized that it's because I'm listening to something that gives me other ideas, or they're talking about something that makes me think about that, but in the context that they're talking about, not giving me the opportunity to be creative with, thinking about something like a topic, a controversy, a perspective, whatever it is. I just couldn't make an original thought of what I was hearing because I was just listening. I was consuming content. I wasn't ideating on it. I wasn't going deeper than the thing that they were talking about. And of course, they had some very interesting points that I was like, wow, that's actually very wise. And that's actually very important. That's very useful to me. But I couldn't take that idea and make it my own by thinking more about it because I wasn't giving myself the space to do that. And so I realized that in order to come up with good content ideas, you need to give your brain and your mind the space and the time to kind of have these ideas flowing, like floating around, and then letting them clash together in your brain so that you can actually come up with an original idea. Otherwise, you're listening to what other people have to say. And that would be copying content word for word because you literally don't have anything else to add, nothing original at least. So that's very important is I realized you need to be able to kind of split your attention between consuming for inspiration and then ideating on those ideas. And then after that you go to producing. So that's three components to getting good content ideas. First, you consume because you need to kind of learn about a few topics. You need to get some few you get Jesus. You need to get a few more perspectives in your mind before you actually start creating your own ideas. So that's the first step is consuming. But then after you've consumed, you should stop consuming for a little while and try to ideate on the things that you learned, on the things that you heard other people say. If you consume a lot of content, then just put the content down, take a notebook, and just brain dump everything that you think of. Because that time, your brain or your mind really has the space to think about these ideas in an original way, changing the angle. Because you're not thinking about that idea in the same way that the creator that was thinking of that idea was explaining, because you're making your own links, right? You have this idea that you heard someone else speak about, but then you connect it to a lot of other things that you've personally seen or experienced. And that's your unique angle. That's why and how you come up with good content ideas. Once that you have ideated on it, it comes down to producing. And this is this classical debate that everyone talks about. You know, the consumer versus producer argument, where you need to stop consuming and you need to start producing. And that's very great. That's great advice, because it pushes people to take action, to do something, and to, you know, to not just be passive and let it slip by. But if you don't get inspiration, and if you don't make an original idea out of that original idea, then you're not going to produce content, because you don't have anything to produce, right? So that middle step is very important, is this ideation phase. And so I recommend, that's what I'm going to do at least, is to have a like a consumer stage, where I consume content for inspiration when I lack a bit of fresh ideas. And then I'm just going to turn the content off, turn the consumerism off, so that I can think about it in a creative way, linking all my unique perspectives and lessons to that idea, to that one thing that I heard that I thought was interesting. And then when that's done, would ideally have this list, or this list of angles that I can take this topic onto social media with. And that's when I start producing. That's when I would start streaming and talking about it, and giving my 2 cents and my perspectives on this original idea that I heard from someone else. And I feel like that's what a successful content creator does, is listening to very interesting things, but giving it your own spin, so that, you know, the way you talk about it, people can relate to you, not to the original idea. Of course, where necessary, give credit when you learn something, right? When you give a quote, or you talk about a lesson that someone else learned, or a particular piece of wisdom that you got from someone, credit them, because, you know, it's really valuable to learn something from someone else. And the value is in you taking that very interesting original idea and making it your own. So that's how I see this content creation, or getting good content ideas, as the most effective. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say in regards to that. I think it's very important to give your brain the space to think about ideas in an original way, with your unique angles. And I think when you do that effectively, you don't run out of content ideas. Because your mind, if you've read Psycho-Cybernetics, you know that your mind is a goal-seeking machine. Like, it's hardwired to search for information based on what goal you give your brain. If your goal is to get good content ideas, you will naturally consume to get good content ideas. But just consuming isn't enough in that regard. You need to consume to get inspiration, but then you need to turn off the content and ideate on it yourself. Because your brain is going to, out of itself, go to unique angles and perspectives, because that's just what it does. It's thinking practically the whole day. So giving yourself a little time block, where you just let loose, and you try to think of as much as you can based on a few original ideas that you heard somewhere else. If you do that effectively, I think you will never run out of content ideas. So that's it. I hope that's useful. And let me know if you try it and if it actually works. I think that's the most effective thing that I'm going to do right now for myself.